Interesting facts about death and everything connected with it. What was depicted in the paintings of the early representatives of the still life? Among the early still lives were paintings in the vanitas genre. The compositional center in them was a human skull. Rotten fruits, withering flowers, and other objects symbolizing aging and fading also participated in the composition. Such paintings were intended to remind of the transience of life, the futility of pleasure, and the inevitability of death. Where and when did people wear mourning rings and medallions en masse? According to the norms of Victorian England, mourning was supposed to last several months or even years, and Queen Victoria herself wore mourning for her husband Albert for the rest of her life. In this regard, special mourning decorations, rings, brooches, medallions, became widespread. Their main color was black, and jet was used for making, although if the mourning was for a child or an unmarried girl, light decorations were allowed. They often contained the initials, a miniature portrait, or a lock of hair of the deceased. How can one become part of a coral reef after death? The American company Eternal Reefs from Florida offers a new way of burial, namely to become part of a coral reef. After cremation, the ashes of the deceased are mixed into concrete, from which domed structures with holes are made. Marine life willingly colonizes them, and thanks to the rough surface, corals and algae easily attach to them. Why did they buy decks of identical cards for the American Army in Vietnam? Among the American soldiers who fought in Vietnam, a belief spread that the image of the Ace of Spades is considered by the Vietnamese to be a symbol of death. Therefore, they began to scatter such cards in the war zone and put them in the mouths of dead enemies. To raise morale, the command ordered a large number of card decks, consisting only of aces of spades. Who ordered music for their funerals that matches the rhythm of a child's step? Shortly before his death, Hans Christian Andersen discussed the music for his funeral with the composer. Believing that most of those who saw him off the coffin would be children, Andersen asked to choose a rhythm that coincided with small steps. What pattern in the deaths of American presidents gave rise to the legend of their curse? There is a legend that the dying Indian chief Tecumseh cursed the presidents of the United States for violating the treaty by whites. A rather specific curse states that presidents elected in years divisible by 20 without a trace will die before the end of their reign. The pattern was confirmed on 7 presidents, including 4 killed: William Harrison, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, Harding, Franklin Roosevelt, and Kennedy. The first to break the curse was Reagan, elected in 1980, who survived an assassination attempt a year later. In the 19th century, his wound would certainly have been fatal. George W. Bush did not add to the list of the dead either, and the only real threat during his presidency was an unsuccessful grenade throw during a visit to Georgia. Why is it illegal to die in a Norwegian city? On the territory of the Norwegian town of Longyearbyen, located on the island of Svalbard, it is forbidden by law to die. This is due to the fact that in permafrost conditions, buried bodies do not decompose and attract the attention of polar bears. Therefore, all seriously ill patients are sent to other parts of Norway, and if death was nevertheless recorded in Longyearbyen, the deceased will still have to be buried elsewhere. What coincidence marked the deaths of the second and third presidents of the United States? The second and third U.S. presidents, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, were among the founding fathers who signed the U.S. Declaration of Independence. By coincidence, Both of them died on the same day, July 4, 1826, exactly on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration. In which country are deceased relatives regularly removed from the crypt and changed? In Madagascar, the practice of ritual veneration of the dead famadihan is widespread. Dead relatives buried in a crypt in the courtyard of the house are taken out every 7 years and changed into a new silk shroud. The rite is accompanied by food and music, and the deceased is supposed to be politely spoken to and asked for blessings. Famadikanu is practiced not only by those who profess the cult of ancestors, but also by most of the Catholics. The local church considers this ritual rather cultural and treats it neutrally. Why can corpses have erections? The corpses of people executed by hanging or choosing this method for suicide may experience erections. This is caused by the pressure exerted by the rope loop on the cerebellum. In men, this may result in urine or mucus, in women, blood from the vagina. What items are in Bob Marley's crypt? The famous Jamaican reggae musician Bob Marley bequeathed a Gibson Les Paul guitar, a soccer ball, a Bible, a ring donated by an Ethiopian prince, and a bunch of marijuana to his posthumous crypt.